with Laura Mahn from Nest Café, and really excited to talk to you today, Laura.
Thanks so much for having me, Annika. I'm excited too.
Yeah, I've been kind of starting out every interview asking people to talk about their connection to the city of Rock Island. Kind of what is your Rock Island story?
This is not the typical one. So I did not grow up in Rock Island. I grew up mostly in North Carolina and on the East Coast. And so my husband got a job teaching at Augustana. That's what brought us here. And I'm going to make some Rock Islanders mad here, but I really dreaded moving here. So
How old were you?
I was 34. I was pregnant with our second son. And like I said, I had mostly lived in North Carolina, Georgia, Virginia, Costa Rica. I had lived mostly near the ocean or mountains or both, and surrounded by trees and lots of rolling hills and greenery. And so moving to the Quad Cities was a little bit like, we're doing what?
Especially at 34
Yeah.
with one child already. That is probably a really hard time to kind of recreate your life and networks. And wow.
Yeah. However, my dad grew up in Illinois. My mom grew up in Iowa. So I had, my mom's whole family was still mostly in Iowa. So I had like some connections. But yeah, I was not looking forward to moving here. And I spent the first few years that we were here just kind of waiting to leave. Mm-hmm. And then, my kids started school and we just kind of got immersed. And so I was like, well, we're not leaving now. And so I just kind of threw myself into Rock Island. I do have kind of a fun Rock Island story. So my husband and I were on an airplane coming out to look at houses right before we moved. And we're getting off the plane and there's a woman, it's a small plane flying into the Moline Airport. And there's a woman asking about what we're doing. And we're going to look at houses. Jason says he's going to start teaching at Augustana. And she's like, oh, okay, so you'll be teaching in Rock Island. You don't want to live there. And we were like, okay, note to self, that is exactly where we want to live.
So you heard that and were like, that tells me that that's where we want to be.
Yeah, I mean, we already kind of knew. Jason wanted to be able to walk to work, things like that are important to us. And we kind of had the lay of the land of how people talked about the various Quad Cities. And we were pretty well set on wanting to live in Rock Island, but that comment kind of sealed the deal.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like maybe a lot of Rock Islanders have that little bit of, not a don't tell me what to do, but almost enjoy being a part of what maybe everyone else isn't doing.
Yeah, it's a little weird. It's like this little kind of rebellion. Mm-hmm. Like, we're going to prove you wrong about what Rock Island is. And I really don't understand the rap that Rock Island gets. It's very strange to me, and has not been my experience at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always fascinating to hear someone who didn't grow up here, because I think another story is that people don't move here. So the only people who live here are people who grew up here. Mm-hmm. And it's been actually eye-opening for me in interviewing people for the podcast. It's been about 50-50.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not maybe as typical that everyone who lives here is just from Rock Island,
right,
like I am. But yeah, so you came from North Carolina, mm-hmm, having lived a lot of different places, mm-hmm, and kind of set your sights on Rock Island. That's exactly where we're going to live.
Yep.
And then what was it like? You said the first couple years kind of like, well, we'll only be here temporarily, mm-hmm, or maybe he'll get a different job.
Yeah.
When did it sort of click that like, nope, this is home, we're staying? What was that experience like?
Yeah, I think when our kids started school, I didn't want to yank them out of that. Like when our kids started building community, that just, I wouldn't want to tear them away from that, And then I had this, I didn't appreciate it as much at the time as I do now, but I had this, these kind of different various women that had kind of wrapped me up and decided that we were going to be friends, you know, and I had a real sense of community that I didn't necessarily appreciate at the time, but I really do now. And I wonder sometimes, like, why did that person just decide that we were going to be friends? But yeah, we had this, the year that Jason started teaching at Augustana, there was a record number. It was like the most faculty that Augustana had ever hired at one time. So there were like 25 or something new faculty that year. And so that was kind of a built-in community. And then, well, you know, Diane Gano helped raise our kids. And so she was one of those people that just kind of decided, like, we're friends now. And, you know, there's no way I could tell Diane that we were moving away. So that wouldn't work. Yeah, there was just kind of this community that I suddenly realized we were part of and didn't need to leave.
It started popping up around you. I love that reflection. I feel like oftentimes I've done so much counseling of women postpartum, and there can almost be a resistance to people like helping.
Yeah.
Kind of this village that shows up to offer support and to offer advice and to offer, you know, and women can feel very much overwhelmed by that and like, go away, you're not respecting my boundaries. And, you know, so part of my job was helping people to set boundaries. But the more I've worked in that field, the more I'm like, those are your people though.
Yeah.
And how do you let that love in? And what does it say about us as modern women that are I maybe this isn't your story, but our inclination is kind of like, no, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Like, I can do it on my own, or I don't need a village, or and that kind of village that pops up despite your maybe like, I'm okay over here, you know, is so beautiful.
Yeah. I think one of the other things that pleasantly surprised me was that I didn't anticipate the Quad Cities being a very diverse community. And then after we've been here for a few years, I had worked at Augustana and then was needing to do something new. And so I taught English as a second language for mostly resettled refugees. And it was mostly women. And so I got to see a part of Rock Island that I hadn't seen before, and this just collective beauty of all these different cultures gathering together. And we were in a church basement, and everyone would bring food during our break time and insist that we all eat together, you know. And so I think seeing that and seeing that my kids were going to school with this real diverse group of people, and then there's all this diversity in this church basement with all these women that are gathering together to learn how to speak English, but really mostly just to socialize together because that's important. And I got to be part of all of that, and that was that was an important part of us being here. And
yeah, and a beautiful model of allowing community too, you know, reveling in community.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. And Diane is a gift.
Yeah, she is.
I'm so sad that her childcare is, you know, obviously she had to retire at some point, but what a beautiful setting for children to grow up in. For anyone who doesn't know, Diane Gano had a at-home or in-home daycare called Under the Ginkgo Tree, and it was like your kids just like slept outside, played with acorns. I mean, it was very outdoor centered, and probably a beautiful model for how early education should be, that kids are just supposed to play. And
that they learn problem solving through playing and
communication. And
that was a gift.
Yeah, she is a gem of Rock Island that we need another one of her to set up shop somewhere.
Or like 10 of her. Yeah, it would be great.
Yes.
Yeah.
So rooted in that community. And I think that is the story of so many people with their children too. Like, once the kids get their people, it becomes very hard to think about moving them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And so after you got integrated, you allowed the village, what are your impressions of Rock Island? Why, beyond the children, do you decide to stay here? It sounds like the diversity, the community.
Yeah. Well, I should backtrack a little bit. So my grandparents and some aunts and uncles lived in central Iowa. And I didn't realize when we first moved here what a just tremendous gift it was going to be that we would be here. So both my mom and her sister died several years ago. And they're my grandparents' only two children. So my brother and I are the only grandchildren. And my brother is in North Carolina and isn't really in a position to help care for people. And so me being just a few hours away, I was able to spend the last decade, really, of my grandparents' life. And my grandfather's sister didn't have any children, and so I was able to participate in the care of them in the last decade of their lives, and really be, kind of the family touchstone, and get to know my grandparents as adults, as an adult, So that was a real gift, and that definitely helped keep us here. They've all passed away at this point, but that was really central to our whole family for several years. I was actually working in Princeton, Illinois, so I'd commute there, come home, and then drive to Maxwell or Des Moines, Iowa, and then come back. And I did that every week.
Oh my gosh.
So that was another big piece of us being here was I was kind of tethered to my family. And that, like I said, just ended up being a real gift to all of us, I think.
Yeah.
But now they're all gone, and I don't know. It's just home. It's just where we are. My oldest son goes to college out in Virginia, and he's at a private school out there, and he really misses the diversity of race and ethnicity and culture and economic backgrounds, and I think kind of feels like maybe some of his classmates at school kind of missed out.
Yeah.
I don't want to, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to glamorize that or anything, but it is a good, if you think about Rock Island High School, there's every economic ability at Rock Island High School. And there's, 30 some languages spoken there. And so many different life experiences gathered in that school cafeteria, And so I think one of the things that has kept us here, to get back to your question 25 minutes later, is that I think our oldest son in particular just really had an appreciation for that that kind of collective diversity all through school, and helped me appreciate it, has helped the rest of our family appreciate it. So yeah, that's another thing that has kept us here, and we have good friends, and it's a good place.
Yeah. My husband and I, we both graduated from Rocky, and I think that was so formative to both of us. And so when we thought about where do we want our kids going to high school, going to school, it was just a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It's like there are some things that you can get from a textbook and from a course, but there are some things that you can only get by living in a community that is filled with all the parts of a community.
Yeah.
Where you don't kind of section yourself off. And so it sounds like that's a shared value. And
yeah, absolutely.
I also noticed you guys pop up at my parents' church at St. John's in Rock Island. So, that You're still members there, are you?
We're not.
Okay.
We haven't been for quite a while. But that's another funny story. So another gem of Rock Island, Clara Caldwell,
yes,
was a neighbor of ours, and she dragged us to St. John's when we first moved here. And so, yeah, that was another kind of formative community where we just kind of felt enveloped and welcomed. So
because I just feel like St. John's is so Rock Island.
it is so Rock Island.
I mean, it's just all these lovely people who just deeply care about others, and the Arc of the Quad Cities folks come, and it's the kids like run wild during the services, and very affirming. I think that church had the first transgender pastor in training. I don't know the terminology, but just it's so Rock Island.
Yeah, it is very.
I love St. John's. I am not a good church attending person, but that's I think where I first met you.
Yeah, I think so. Our kids, my kids are older than yours, but I think they went to Sunday school together and things like that when they were all real little.
Yeah, our villages. My mom will take my kids. I mean, she really is their church connection. And my husband and I just like sleep in and do our own thing. So
and your mom and I, for a while, I helped run the after-school program at St. John's, and your mom was a big part of that.
Was that like Wow on Wednesdays? Yeah. She still keeps in touch with a couple of the little kids from that program. And, So, but that experience is like the Rock Island experience.
Absolutely.
Just being around lots of different people. There's a little bit of a genuineness to people where they really like look at you and care about you. And it can almost feel overwhelming. Like, Claire Caldwell wants to like hug you, and she's so wonderful. And
and that again, I don't want to glamorize the whole diversity of it. It doesn't mean that things always go well. There are bumps and people don't get along. But I think that's a really valuable part of, especially for our kids growing up. I think that's a really valuable thing for them to see. And how do we work through this? And what are the reasons that people don't get along? I think those are important things to work through as you're a teenager, so that you don't get bombarded with it when you're 50 and don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
Or choose not to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be in it, and you as parents, we can help them. Well, what do you think about that? And why do you think that happened? And how do you want to approach it? And that's so cool.
Is it your business to approach it? Yeah.
Did they ask for your help?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and so I'm just so curious about, I had Don Wooten on, and he said that he was mostly felt he was a teacher. And I've had some folks on who I think strongly identify with this role of leader. And, as I was thinking about you coming on, I'm like, what is Laura? And I don't know you that well, but just the work you're doing through Nest, I'm like nourisher. She's nourishing people, or she's people-centered, or so I'm so curious about your journey to Nest.
Yeah.
How did you come up with this idea? What made you move in this direction of starting Nest?
So I guess to start, I'll clarify what Nest is. Nest is a pay-what-you-can restaurant in downtown Rock Island. It's an acronym. It stands for Nourish Everyone Sustainably Together. And I don't have like a concrete answer. It wasn't like a one-time like, oh, I'm gonna go start this thing. It's kind of a journey, like most things are. So I think the farthest back I can trace the little seed of this is I'm an ordained minister, and I was serving a congregation as associate minister in Atlanta. And there's this great, or at least there used to be, I don't know if it's still there, there's this great restaurant that used to serve specifically unhoused people. And volunteers would go in and make the whole dinner, and then serve on like white tablecloths. And so it was supposed to be, a really welcoming environment. But it was specifically like, I think there were a couple of staff, and then volunteers would go in, make the dinner, and serve the unhoused people, which is great. But I loved going there, and I loved taking people there to help volunteer. But there was always a little something about it that bothered me, and I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. And then fast forward a few years, I was living back in North Carolina, and I was working for a large nonprofit there, and I was in charge of, one of the things I did was arrange the meals for the huge women's homeless shelter. So every night there was a different congregation or synagogue that would make the meal. And we had like 250 different congregations that were making these meals, which is phenomenal. But every night, what was being made was either pizza or pasta. Because, we're busy people, and as busy people, pizza and pasta are pretty easy to do. You order pizza or you make pasta. It's cost effective, So I understood why it was happening. But from the perspective of the women that were eating this food every single night, they're already a really vulnerable population. A lot of them probably had diabetes. And so then we're just carb loading them every single night. And there are a lot of people, I'm sure, that will say, well, they could,
you get what you get.
You get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. Yeah. And I'll talk more about this, but I think we've kind of created that idea that that people should either accept nothing or the scraps that somebody gives them, and that there's not another alternative. And I think there are lots of other alternatives. But so I started paying attention to like what it is that we're offering people that are struggling. So that kind of started needling away in my brain. And then I was in some other situations where there would be meal programs, and there was always this, I'm trying not to name names, so, but there was one situation where like a specific group of people had signed up to serve in the kitchen or to make the meal. And then there were a couple of other people that usually participated in eating the meal, and they wanted to help make the meal, and they were like shooed away, like, and I know that it was with good intentions, like, no, we want to serve you, we want to take care of you, you don't, you know what I mean? Like it was good intentions.
Very defined roles between the helper and the helped.
Yeah.
And that doesn't feel very good for the helped.
Right. Right. And the helpers were like, absolutely not. Like it was like their turf was being treaded on, and I know that it was well-meaning, but it hurt the feelings of the people that wanted to help make the meal. And that really,
it's kind of like, sit down, I'm helping you now.
Yeah.
I don't want to know you or have your involvement.
Exactly.
But,
exactly.
I really will feel good when I leave here.
Exactly. And so that experience actually helped me go back in my head to the place in Atlanta when I was like, oh, that's what it was. It was the line, that like really definitive separation between those who are serving and those who are being served. Like when I have fortunately usually been on the serving side. And so like we get to go home and feel good about ourselves and pat ourselves on the back. Yay, we did something good. And we did, like that's valid. But for the people that are being served, they're still experiencing shame or being made to feel less than, or being made to feel like, look at this good thing I'm doing for you, So I just started getting to know some of those folks and realizing how many gifts they bring and how they usually want to help, And while all this is going on in my head, I was serving a congregation in Princeton, Illinois, and I was noticing how the people that I was visiting in the emergency room were often the people that were struggling financially, and like the people that I would go grocery shopping with and help them with their SNAP, which is a whole ordeal that, good golly, you have to have like a degree to figure out how to use that stuff. But, and so I started putting together the connection between, we all know it, but like the real connection between the food that is available to people and their health. And it is an undeniable connection. And so all these things are going on in my head, along with the ladies that I had taught English to, and how they would gather around food, in the church basement and just bring all this stuff and insist that everybody eat it. And so all of these things kind of gelled in my head, like, why aren't there places, like real restaurants where people can go and just pay whatever they're able to pay and eat like real food?
Nest food is really good.
It is really good food.
Really tasty, yummy.
So it just, if you think of like the economics of it, it just makes no sense the way our system works right now, where it costs, I always use a carrot as an example. It costs more to eat a carrot that grew out of the ground without having any chemicals or anything added to it. Just your regular old carrot. It costs more to buy one of those than it costs to buy a can of Coke or, potato chips or whatever that were made in a factory, and hundreds of people participated in making that, and they had to get paid. And then,
you have to drive it.
You have to drive it, and
you have to store it.
You have to pay for the machines that made it. All these things. And somehow that carrot is still more expensive than that other stuff. It is so bizarre, Annika. It's just completely upside down. So, and this gets back to my grandma. She used to giggle about when people would talk about organic food. She was like, when I was growing up, we just called it food. Because, it's the same thing. Because we didn't used to put all this extra garbage into food. So all these things just kind of gelled together, and I thought, oh gosh, there should be a restaurant, where people can just eat really good food. And I really thought I was a spectacular genius for coming up with this idea. And then I started doing some research and realized that there are these places all over the place. So there are lots of geniuses out there.
I've done that before. I'm like the queen of ideas, like Michael Scott on The Office, who's like Shoe La La, a shoe store for men. And then I'll be like, I wonder if anyone's come up with that, and always somebody has.
Oh yeah, we're not very original creatures. Yeah. So I started researching all these other places. I connected myself with a network of pay what you can restaurants called One World Everybody Eats, and I inserted myself into. They have an annual summit, and I just contacted someone and said, like, I don't have a restaurant, but can I come? And they're like, yeah, come on. So I went, and I was like, oh, these are my people. And I started visiting lots of different restaurants in that network and kind of picking and choosing, like, ooh, I really like this about this one. I don't like this so much, And then I could kind of just put together all the things that I liked. And decided, okay, the time is right. We're gonna do this now. I had my whole life, I've just had a horrific fear of failure, especially public failure. And this was something that, if it did not go well, was going to be very, very public. But I got to the point where I just didn't care.
Do you think that's our age?
Probably.
Yeah, just kind of getting older and wanting to do weird stuff, and just realizing like there's no rules. No one is telling you can or you can't except yourself.
Yeah.
And,
Well, and I had a great conversation with Jerry Jones, actually, where I kind of spit this idea out to him, and also conveyed to him how terrified I was of public failure. And Jerry said something like, well, he asked me, how many people would you need to feed for it to feel like it was a success? And I started thinking about that. And I was like, well, I I guess one would feel like a success. So really there isn't really a public failure. So yeah.
But I love that you acknowledge that, because I think that stops probably a lot of people from doing cool things.
Mm-hmm.
What if it doesn't succeed?
Yeah.
You know, so I'm very grateful that you kind of got some support, overcame that, and we're like, I'm doing it.
But I will say, like, if I had tried to do it 10 or 15 years earlier, it would have been a failure. You know, like, I think timing plays an important part. And I don't exactly know why the time was right, but it felt like the time was right, you know.
I think when there's something that we love, it's almost like another baby.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have 4 kids, you have 2 kids,
Mm-hmm.
but I think, you know, maybe not especially for women, for men and women, but those projects that you pour yourself into have to kind of fit in with the overall story of your life.
Yeah.
And when I once heard this saying, it's called like life pruning, almost like a rose bush, that you have to prune back on certain things
Mm-hmm.
so that these other healthy things can grow over
Yeah.
here, and then you prune back. I think there are stages of our children's lives too where it becomes really hard to do all the things we want to do
Mm-hmm.
and balance that with what they need. And I see that with a lot of friends and women, just they have all these wonderful ideas. They have, but you know, it's also I don't know, you have to do it when the moment's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we're not running out of time. I think that is always helpful too, is like, we're just getting started.
Yeah. My kids would probably say that Nest is my favorite child.
Okay. That's so funny.
Yeah. So, So
what year did you, because I assume then you were like, now I have to form a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to find a board. I have to, you know, what year was it that all started coming together?
That was 2019.
Oh, right before the pandemic.
Oh, yeah. So we had our first board meeting in November of 2019, and then and we applied for our nonprofit status, all that good stuff. We had ideas that maybe we would open like late 2020. And then, 2020 happened. And so the board and I kind of just looked around and thought, like, okay, what do we do? Do we postpone all of this? Do we just like be really stubborn and just go ahead and open anyway? What are we going to do? And I had a handful of people saying, this isn't the right time. Maybe you should wait. But what we decided to do was, okay, there are all these people that really need to eat. They still need good food. They need to be able to eat it outside or in their own homes. And so we started doing pop-up meals. So we did monthly pop-up meals in different places around the Quad Cities.
And you could drive through. We picked those up. You could
I
drive through
that.
And pick up food. And
Yep. Mm-hmm. We did it a lot. I mean, once a month, but like nothing stopped us. So like there was one time we were serving at Two Rivers United Methodist Church in downtown Rock Island, and it was like negative 20 degrees outside. And God bless the people that came, but they got to drive up in their cars, and Katie Thompson and I were standing out there in just ridiculous big like snowsuits and serving food. It was great, made for great memories.
Yeah. And the model is anybody can pay what they want, like you said. So I could get a meal for my family, and maybe I really believe in what Nest is doing, and so I might even overpay for my meal as a way to support. Can you do that?
I'm so glad that you said that. Okay. So,
because I feel like we tried to do that, like give extra money at the drive-thru.
Yeah. So I'm so glad you said that. So I was anticipating that you would ask me, like, what's been the most difficult thing about this? So I'm just going to go ahead and answer that, even though you didn't ask. And the most difficult thing is getting people to understand that we do not have prices. So there's no such thing as paying extra.
Yeah, that's right. You just give whatever you want.
Yeah. So, and that's important because it seems like it would be simple. Like you pay what you can. Everybody's just paying what they can. But it becomes so complex, which I had not anticipated. So we do have a lot of people that will say, like, I'd like to pay extra, or, well, I'll come to some examples in a minute. But really, if you can pay $20 or $25, then please do. You know, if you can pay $10, please do. But we have this sign. We used to have a suggested donation amount, and people just really understood that as a price. And so we changed our wording to get away from people thinking that it's a price, because we don't have prices. So we changed the wording, and we have a sign in the restaurant that says, "We do not have prices." And then it says, like, "Are you stuck? Do you need a starting place?" Yeah. Because it's really, I understand it's overwhelming for people. Like, I have no idea what to pay, you know? So we say, do you need a starting place? Well, a starting place could be $12 for a full plate and $8 for a half plate. That means absolutely nothing, Annika. So what we did was we looked at what people pay at fast food restaurants for a full meal, like some sort of side and a drink.
Fast food has gotten really expensive.
It's really expensive, yeah. And so the average meal like that is $12. So we were like, oh, $12. It actually costs us about $21 per meal that we serve. If meaning that if we were like a traditional style restaurant, we would have to charge $21 to cover our bills.
Rent and the chef and the
insurance and all that. Yeah. All the good things. But yeah, so we just have a starting place. And it, like I said, it really means nothing. But the reason that it comes into play is because, so some people will say something like, I paid extra, so can I get an extra dessert? And so again, there is no extra. We appreciate that people, maybe pay $25 or something, but it's not extra. It's what you were able to pay. And so if you were able to pay $25 and the person behind you was able to pay 82 cents, are we doing what we are intending to do if I reward you by letting you get an extra dessert, but the person that paid 82 cents, I can't give them an extra dessert? Yeah. So that really became an issue. We were having all these people say things like, I paid extra, can I go through the line again? Or I paid extra, can I get an extra dessert? I paid extra, can I get some more salad? And so we had to make a rule. I hate rules, but we've had to make a lot of them now. So we have, like, if you want an extra dessert, it's $2. Everybody gets the same amount. Everybody goes through the line once. It's not a buffet. You go through the line once, and everybody gets the same amount.
I need to come get one of these desserts.
Yeah. They're really good desserts, and they're small on purpose because we're really conscious of not wanting to over sugar people, but a dessert is just meant to be like a little sweet bite at the end of your meal. But wow, we serve a lot of extra desserts. It's really funny. Beth Samuelson, also, who I also know from St. John's, is our baker. She makes all of our desserts. So wow. Yeah, people love her desserts.
Yeah, the desserts have become, I think that's so wonderful, because like anything you're trying to do, there's always some, there's this beautiful thing that we're doing, and there's always some like tension in there. Or, with anything.
Yeah,
with
just things that I hadn't thought of, and completely understandable from everyone's perspective, but if we're really trying to, another example is, so some people have asked, well, if it would cost $21 to cover your expenses, then why don't you have $21 as the starting place rather than $12? And the reason for that is if I can only pay $2 for my meal, and I see that the suggested or whatever is $21. That's really intimidating. That's going to make me feel like, wow, I can't come anywhere close to that. I'm just going to leave. And so we don't want anyone to feel that. Mm-hmm. I would really prefer to not have any number up there, but that...
There's almost a spiritual, like self-reflective, to sit in the space and look at yourself within the context of a community. What is my economic status? What is my safety status?
Yeah.
What is my, and to kind of really gut check yourself, like, what can I afford to pay?
Yeah.
And what do I value about what's happening here? And, that is kind of an uncomfortable question, probably, even with like when we're thinking about tax reform.
Oh, sure.
It's like, what could I afford to give of myself financially so that another person can eat or have clothes or have health care or live in a body that, that is a, probably there's something about being in that space that could even reflect this like larger question about
absolutely,
what can I afford?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're challenging people. They just, and even, this idea that if I tell you, well, here's your rate, it's 30%, that you'll be like, okay, well, then you've set a guideline for me. I don't have to go over, or, I don't know. It's very interesting.
It makes people uncomfortable, some people, and I completely get that. But it also, it makes other people really, really comfortable, you know? And so, I don't know. And I guess another thing, you haven't asked this, but I'm just making up my own questions here.
I like it. I appreciate it.
I think a lot of people assume that Nest or any pay what you can restaurant is specifically for unhoused people. Because when we think someone who can't afford to eat well or someone who's food insecure, I think our brains just kind of jump to homeless individuals, which is absolutely true. However, in the Quad Cities, in the metro Quad Cities, we have around 300,000 people. And more than a quarter of us are considered food insecure, meaning we don't have the means for each person in the family to have enough food to live a healthy and active lifestyle.
So that's, I can't do math fast, but that's somewhere in 70,000.
It's 96,000 people.
96,000 people. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And depending on how you define homelessness, which there are there's a lot of fluidity there. But we have somewhere between 800 and 1,500 homeless people in the Quad Cities. It may be a little bit more depending on how you define that. But so we have around 95,000 people who are housed, but are still food insecure. And I think those 95, that's a lot of people, Annika, in our community. And so
that's every single person living in Rock Island, because our population's 36?
Yeah.
So it's like 3 Rock Islands worth of people who are food insecure.
Right. Yeah. And Rock Island has a slightly higher food insecurity rate than the other Quad Cities, just slightly. And so, and those are the people that kind of get forgotten about, because some of them qualify for like government assistance or did qualify for government assistance, but a lot of those folks are just right on the edge. My grandparents would have been in that category. My husband and I would have been in that category 15 years ago when we're paying off college loans and have little kids. And so I just want people to understand that it's our neighbors it's the people that we're in line with at the grocery store and that wait on us in all these places that we go, at the bank and gas stations, and we're bumping shoulders with and standing next to folks that are food insecure every single day, multiple times a day. And you can't always tell by looking at someone.
Absolutely.
And so that, I think, is maybe the most important thing about Nest in my mind, is that it needs to be a place, and I've been so pleasantly not surprised, but just I'm really happy that it has turned out to be a place where there are all these people from different economic abilities and life situations that are all sitting in the same room, eating the same food, and you don't necessarily know what someone else paid for their meal, and you shouldn't know what someone else paid for their meal, and it doesn't matter, and it's none of your business. And we just are all in the same room eating the same really good, nutrient-dense food and kind of getting to know each other without the first thing that you know about someone is their economic status. Because a lot of places that help people that are struggling, you can identify them as soon as they walk through the door just because they walked through that door. Yeah. And so that's what we don't want Nest to be, is we don't want people guessing or making assumptions about people just because they walked in the door at Nest. And the community has really been amazing about that. We have really wonderful people that have just rallied. And
I was talking to a friend today, just like, oh, I'm going to talk to Laura today. And they work in a professional space on the Iowa side, and talking about how some of the staff who are not paid as highly as some of the other, they come over for lunch, and they can afford, but it's hard to go out to lunch as a young person who's working. So they still pay something, but they can't afford to go out to lunch every day. Yeah. And, so I think, it's so beautiful, such a beautiful model. And I just really appreciate that it honors that in that setting, everybody is getting something from everybody else. Yeah. And maybe one person, is getting a little financial support, but it's not losing sight of the fact that every person in that space sharing a meal together has something to offer, has a lesson, has an insight, has has goodness and worth. And I really, really like that. Yeah. Yeah. And I think I was kind of trying to do a little research to familiarize myself, but I think, SNAP is the first line intervention for folks who are facing food insecurity in the United States. And then what I was listening to was like next is food banks. Then there's like the WIC program, and there are kind of community efforts to feed people. Is that about right? That those are the big things that try to nourish or feed? Yeah. Not all of them are nourishing, but at least get calories into people.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're all doing great work. I would say.
Oh, and I think the one I forgot is food programs in schools. So schools feeding kids.
Right. So I started talking about this a little bit ago, but we've created this kind of false scenario where we say like people kind of just need to, well, if they're hungry enough, they'll eat it, or someone one time sent a message on Facebook to the Nest Facebook account, and they said, #fed is best. And I understand that, we want people to eat. But why can't we just assume that if we want people to eat, that we want them to eat well, instead of just saying like, well, if they're hungry enough, then they can eat, pasta and potato chips and Jolly Ranchers or whatever. And it's calories, so it's good enough. When actually, a lot of times what we're feeding or making available to people is causing more harm than good.
And there are certain types of food that you could eat all day, but you'll still feel hungry.
So if a
kid eats candy and potato chips all day, they're actually going to feel very hungry, and that it's going to throw their metabolism into like a metabolic disease where, they're going to have health problems. And this might sound like a conspiracy theory, but when I was studying policy and poverty policy, and when I was in my master's program, there was this idea about like the functionality of poverty, and that in every society there will be a group of people who are poor, but for the society, it has a function, this kind of purpose that no one's maybe purposely doing it. But it's making me think of like, you know, the biggest industry that's grown in the United States in the last decade is healthcare. A lot of our economy revolves around healthcare. A lot of the drug manufacturers and, you know, the subsidies. Like one real big thing to think about with cuts to SNAP is cuts to farmers who make corn that goes into products that then can be bought with SNAP dollars. So there's this little system that kind of creates business for other entities to take care of. So people in poverty, it's like there's a whole industries that run off their backs. Is that a conspiracy theory or is that true?
No, that's a reality theory. Actually, you just made me think. For anyone who's listening, if you have a chance to watch the documentary Common Ground, it's on Amazon Prime.
Did you just screen that, or am I thinking of? Was there like a film screening or something for that?
So we are having a film screening. It's a private screening, so we can't say the name of the film publicly. But it
cut it out.
But it does talk about food and those things. And if you were interested in such things, I would recommend that you watch Common Ground.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to check it out.
Which talks a lot about how the companies that create the chemicals for pesticides, or just the pesticide companies, really drive pretty much everything that happens with the Farm Bill. I'm going to recommend that people watch that.
And it's such a huge, complicated web. I mean, it's such a big, so like in Iowa, I had Adam Peters on last week, and he was talking about how Iowa has the highest cancer rate in the country. But they also have legislation that you can't hold the, you know, companies that make the chemicals that go on the crops and something, I don't know all the details, but you can't actually hold them accountable. You can't take action against them legally. So there's just all these very interwoven things.
Yeah.
And
that are just kind of absurd.
They are absurd. I'm a huge fan of, and, you know, I'm not going to start my own political party, but I'm a big fan of giving cash to people. So like getting the layers out of the middle, getting the middle managers and the programs that run things, and trying to get those out of the way so that human beings can take their dollar and do with it what they choose is to their best and highest purpose. Buy the food that they want to buy.
Yeah.
You know, use the housing, live where they want to live, pool their money to do things. I think all the layers of policy and controlling where money goes and controlling what people can buy. And yeah. When I worked at Edgerton, we also administered the second largest WIC program in Iowa.
Okay.
And so that program is for women who are pregnant or have had babies under a certain income level. And it's a lot of those programs are like very specific on where you can purchase your food, what kind of food you can purchase. And just a little aside, when I was working in that job, I was pregnant with twins. I had 2 little kids at home. You know, I was the CEO. My husband was taking care of our 2 kids at home. And we were like basically acquired by Community Health Care. And so in that process, I knew I was going to lose my job.
Right.
But I also was very pregnant. I couldn't find another job. I had preeclampsia at the end. Like, it was a very stressful time.
Yeah.
So I went from running the program that administered that program to 2 months later being on Medicaid and being a recipient of WIC.
Oh, gosh.
And, you know, that's the American story. It's like everyone is living a paycheck away. You know, we had 4 babies. I couldn't work.
Yeah.
My husband was starting in his career. We were living below whatever those poverty, you know, and this is not that long ago. My twins are only 8.
Right. Yeah.
And so those mechanisms for support, but having been through that program, you know, you go with your little card and you've got to stand at the checkout line and you have to, like, people are kind of looking at you. And it wasn't food that I'd ever bought in that way before. Like, you could get a jug of milk or a big bag of cheese.
Cheese in quotes.
Yeah. But you could buy like beans, you could buy like frozen peas, you could buy, you know, but it's very limited, and you have to like look at like, what am I allowed to buy with this food?
Right.
And who decides that? And, you know, it's, but to your point, I think it's like 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck and are, you know, a paycheck or two away from being in that situation.
Yeah.
And I've been there. And I had, you know, my parents would never let us be like unhoused.
Right.
But they also couldn't pay our bills or anything like that. So I also was a lucky person, even in that kind of scary time.
Sure. Yeah. You had kind of a support network around you that a lot of people don't have.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. But I mean, you know, you never know what families are going through things.
Absolutely.
Or what people's financial situations are, or similar to your husband being a professor, like we both had advanced degrees, and then you have all the student debt, and it's like you have little kids and you're taking turns working, and you know, it is not easy to live on one income
it is
in
not.
the United States with children.
It's not. No, it's not. Yeah. And then so much of the food that is available is really highly processed food that I've learned so much about. I just don't think we do a good job of educating ourselves or others about the food that we're eating. And so, yeah, most of the food that's available is this really highly processed food that's known, like it can cause cancers, different kinds of cancers, high blood pressure, heart disease, attention disorders, sleep disorders. And so when we're, like, I think of the most maybe, I don't like using the terms conservative and liberal, but if we're thinking of the most like fiscally conservative person and how they might not want to be supportive of programs that are helping impoverished people, maybe, let's flip that around and say, if we want people to be productive members of society, to hold down a job and, you know, be what we call productive members of society, then they have to eat well. They have to be able to sleep well. They have to be able to think well. And if they don't have access to the food that allows our bodies to do that, we've set up a system where we're just asking people to fail and then blame them for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also this return on investment.
Yeah.
If you have a person who has access to healthy food, maybe you incentivize, rather than corn syrup, you incentivize ways to make healthy food easier to, because also when you're overwhelmed or living below the poverty line, you have little kids, it can feel really overwhelming to make food, to prepare it for yourself, to get the kids fed. But there could be a whole industry of like faster, healthy food, but that's not what we subsidize and put money into.
Right.
And, but with all of these things, like I think you're talking about it from a conservative perspective of like, we're all wasting our money. You're wasting my tax dollars feeding people.
Right.
But there's also this idea of return on investment. If people are healthier birth to 5, if they're healthier as they age, you are going to save money with your healthcare dollars.
Absolutely.
I hope our society never gets to a point where we just let people die in the street.
Yeah.
I think we probably won't do that. And so we are always going to pay that bill.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah.
Like you said, when you were working in the emergency rooms, the people with the most chronic, expensive, debilitating health conditions were often people who didn't have access to clean food, clean water, clean environment. And so, yeah. I mean, we're paying for it one way or the other.
Exactly.
And when I say we're paying for it, how arrogant, because we know we live in a society where we are all a medical emergency, a life situation or two away from being a recipient of a safety net
Absolutely.
that is life-changing and that you or I could need. We might need when we're older. We might need when we're having our little babies. Like,
or we might need tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We might have a flood. We might have a, so just the grounding of like, like, who am I to think that I'll never need help?
Yep. Yeah.
But I'm rambling.
No, that's good. And so you used a word that, or a term that I love hearing, which is healthy food. And I think that's such a fun term because no one knows what that means. We don't know what that means. You know, healthy food means food that helps you lose weight to one person, and it means something completely different to everyone. And so I guess I want to make clear that when I'm talking about food, I'm talking about, I guess, what I would call real food. So food that was not manufactured.
Like if you look at the ingredient lists on the back of the label, maybe there's 5 or less ingredients, 3 or less. I don't know. But
I would say, like, okay, so for example, part of the reason that our costs are so high to run Nest is that I think a lot of people think that we get all of our food donated, and that is not true. We buy all of our meat from Grateful Gray's Regenerative Farm in Cambridge, Illinois. And so a regenerative farm is a farm that uses the land and the animals to feed each other. So there are no chemicals involved anywhere in the process. So the animals eat from the land and then disperse and they fertilize the land, and so they're helping the land, and then the land in return is helping the animals eat, and that's the whole system. And you move the animals around from place to place so that they're fertilizing the different parts of the land, and there are different plants and trees growing in different parts, because then that gives the different animals the nutrients that they need, yada, yada, yada. So it's a whole system. It's kind of how farming was intended to work and how it worked for thousands and thousands of years.
Sorry if the look on my face is because we went to Wisconsin for a work trip, and the outing they planned was for us to go to the dairy farm that provides most of the cheese for all the pizza and everything in Wisconsin. I don't know why they took us there. It was one of the most disturbing. All the cows were like so close to each other. They had like pussy eyes, and it smelled bad. And then they'd get on these machines that would milk them and take them around a conveyor belt. And, you know, all of the droppings were mixed. And like the kids were grossed out. Jim and I, like, we went home and showered. It was like, that was the most depressing. Yeah. So this farm sounds like it is the way farms are intended to be, rather than some of the factory farms. Right. Like at the end, they gave us a ice cream bar that was made from, and no one wanted to eat them. Yeah. We all just left depressed and grossed out. Yeah. But you don't usually have to see that when you eat your food. So exactly. You can be like, it's not happening.
Exactly. We can just be ignorant. And that's how we usually eat, you know? But because regenerative farming is not the way that most farms work now, it's expensive, you know? And so, but the reason we buy that meat is because it has all of the nutrients that meat is supposed to have. It hasn't lost any of the nutrients. And they actually, Grateful Grays has t-shirts that say, our cows eat kale, so you don't have to, which I think is hilarious.
Although I really like kale.
I do really like kale, but I know a lot of people don't. So, yeah, so we think it's worth it. You know, we're in the Midwest, people eat meat. You know, if you're going to eat meat, we want you eating the meat that our bodies were created to eat and process and use, you know. So, and then in the summer, a lot of our produce, we get as much as we can from local gardeners. Nest has a garden. We buy the majority of our lettuce from Tapestry Farms, which is another local nonprofit. So we want to support our farmers. We want as many nutrients as possible in the food that we're buying. And then we do shop at grocery stores. So, the growing season does not last 12 months in the Quad Cities. So we do shop at grocery stores also, but we try to buy organic produce and things like that. So that we're getting as many nutrients into people's bodies. So when we're thinking of healthy food, we're thinking of as like packing as much punch as possible as far as nutrients go and taking away as many chemicals as possible.
And so nutrients, like you need fat, you need protein, you need carbohydrates.
You need all the vitamins, you need minerals.
Vitamins, minerals, yeah. So just getting a really well-rounded, like you said, nutrient-dense meal. And I think there probably in your world, also in mine around food, there can be these landmines of all food is good food. I'm in mental health, so around disordered eating or body image, there is absolutely 100% health at every size. There is all that stuff can like get tangled up, and then it becomes really difficult to talk about. Yeah. And as a, even as a therapist, not only does what you eat affect your physical body, but your mind is connected to that body, and it can really impact mood, anxiety.
Oh, 100%.
Like brain fog. And so, but it can be dicey territory to ask someone, how are you sleeping? What are you eating? And it's just tricky because people can be in recovery from maybe disordered eating, and they're in a phase where they're eating mindfully, they're trying a variety of foods, maybe they've been so into labeling like good food, bad food, that is very unhealthy to kind of get it into those categories. And so it's a tricky thing to talk about.
It is a tricky thing to talk about.
But my bias is, no, there is good food and bad food, but you're not supposed to say that.
Yeah. I think if we can just say food, like food is naturally made, so like real food versus fake food. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and I think what we know about food that is, I've also spent a lot of time with addiction and recovery, and I do believe that there's food that scientists have designed in a lab to hijack your brain. It's the food that you think about when you're away from the food, not because you're hungry, but because you want it to do something to you. Yeah. And that food is usually cheaper, and they've spent a Dorito, how much money has gone into the flavor profile of the Dorito, the way the fat and the salt, and and so to expect people to it would be like asking someone with a drinking issue to mindfully drink.
Yeah, that's a really good way to say it.
And some people can. My mother-in-law can keep a little thing of chocolates in her foyer and have one a day, and they would be there for however many days of chocolate were there. Yeah. If I spent the night there, I would eat all the chocolate, and she'd be like, what happened to all my chocolate? So also, I think people are designed differently. There's no one size fits all.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But for people whose brains are maybe more influenced by dopamine hits and, telling someone well, you should just be able to mindfully eat the dessert and move on, I don't think acknowledges, or mindfully eat the Dorito I don't think it acknowledges the power that chemicals can have over your brains, where you're a little bit powerless. So
we do sound like conspiracy theorists right now. We really do. There are people listening oh gosh.
I put something on my Instagram that was something about not being afraid to be cringy, because I don't think you can do something like this without with censoring yourself too much.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. But everything is complicated. So even food, even feeding people.
Yeah. It's complicated.
Gets complicated because people have so many different views about,
Yeah. But you just raised something that I hadn't pointed out earlier, and I sound like I think that Nest is the end all be all save every. I realize that it is not. But some of the things you were just talking about reminds me of why we try to make it so that everyone has choice. Like, that's really important, that everyone has like ownership over what they're eating at Nest. So we have, everyone gets to choose their portion size. Do you want a full plate or do you want a half plate? I don't know how much it takes to make you full, so you choose. We always have 2 main dishes, 2 side dishes, 2 desserts, and everybody kind of creates their own salad. So everyone's choosing what they want. We always have a meat option and a vegan option, not just vegetarian, but vegan. We always have a gluten-free option. And we found that about 30% of our customers have special diet needs because of medical issues. So it's important to give people choice about what they're eating. And we don't, unless you're going to a pretty fancy restaurant, we don't tend to give people those options and those choices, especially for people that have special diet needs, So I think that's an important piece of what we're doing, and I would love to see more of that. Just, there's a reason. I understand why food pantries can't do that a whole lot, because things have to be shelf stable. But it would be great if, just as a whole society, we could kind of turn the food system on its head and say, okay, we're going to prioritize real food because it has actually what our bodies were intended to process and use. So we're going to prioritize making those things available and giving people choice, because every person is different. I think that would be a great project for, the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And it would be more flexible and made more possible to play around with it and have pilot projects if the way that we structured our social safety net wasn't so programmed from the top down of like which foods and what, if from the ground up people just had like the funds to, almost like making capitalism work for you, to invest and, move toward the food that tastes better and is nutrient dense. And I don't know.
And it's just so interesting because it was this way for thousands of years. It's just been like since the 1950s, really, that processed foods became a thing for lots of reasons. But so this is a really new problem that we just kind of created ourselves. And so it's not you don't have to look back very far to figure out how we could return to doing things a little bit better.
Yeah. And I think even for Rock Island, I think we are in a food desert in some parts of our city where there just isn't even access to a place nearby to go and get any type of grocery, fresh groceries. And I don't know if this is like an area that you know about, but could a community feed itself all year long with the proper physical structures? And, can you do like indoor farming year round for fruits and vegetables in a way that you could feed a whole community locally?
That's a great question. I mean, you could.
I've seen it in these post-apocalyptic movies where they all live in bunkers. I'm like, oh, they're all feeding themselves inside.
I think you could. It would take so much investment. And so it's, why not?
So you would just need soil and water and some special kind of lights.
And warmth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you could grow tomatoes, and you can grow
just about anything.
You can grow just about anything inside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wonder what just for a thought experiment, like if on 11th Street we created an entire indoor ecosystem where we could feed a giant greenhouse where you could feed the entire city fruits and vegetables year round. I just wonder, could you then sell that to the grocery stores in Rock Island? Could you have we should look it up and see who else is doing it.
We should look this up because clearly we did not just come up with this ourselves.
Yes, no, this is one of those things we did not just come up with ourselves. But I'm just like wondering, like, how much would that cost, and what would can you make any money off of it by outsourcing it to your neighbors who need fresh fruits and vegetables? Just that idea of self-governance and self-sustainability, and if how does Rock Island kind of protect its water, protect its food source? Maybe we get like one guy make toilet paper just in case,
Yeah, just in case.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about how large that facility would need to be. I mean, obviously it would need to be ginormous.
But now they do like vertical gardening too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then like what the return on investment, like how long it would take for the cost benefit to play out, and if people have that much patience. But it seems like, I mean, we've had patience with the way we're doing things now, so it seems like it could be worth a try.
Yeah.
I like it, Annika.
Yeah, let's
like
find a way to.
Let's do it.
There's so many ideas, but just a community being able to feed, and I love your Nourish, and that's how I will think of you, is like, it goes beyond feeding people, it's nourishing people, and, doing that in a sustainable way together.
Yeah.
That is such I love Nest.
It's great.
Why don't I come to Nest every day? Why haven't I been coming every day? Now I work down here. I'm going to go,
Please do.
Yes.
I have to say, I need to take some ownership of this. I mean, it is a little bit selfish on my part. Like I love getting to know people and know their stories and know like how, and
you should start a podcast.
Really dig in there. Yeah. And like hear how we're all so similar and how we're all so different. And so, it is a little bit selfish on my part. Like I kind of just like to hang out and chit chat with people, and I get to do that. So it feeds me, it nourishes me as well. I can't quite say how, but I do really thrive on making connections with people. And yeah.
So I want to start this like think tank thing, and so a couple people have signed up, but I haven't set a date for it because I'm just overwhelmed and like, what am I doing? But it would be cool to get, for one of the think tanks, a group of people, maybe Tapestry Farms and Grateful, is it Grays or
Grays?
Mm-hmm. Grateful Grays, even though they don't, they're in Orion, but
they're in Cambridge.
Or Cambridge.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But like a group of people interested in this world together. And the nice thing about the think tank is like, there's no commitment. You don't have to do anything with it, but just getting like-minded people together to think, and to think outside the box, and to be like, how could Rock Island sustainably feed its population without looking for an outside chain grocery store to come in, right. Or, and there's no commitment. It's just like, let's come, because I feel like that's the problem. A lot of doers, and they're already on too many boards and they don't have time, but just for people to come together and think and write it down somewhere, and then go off and maybe think about it again in a little while.
Let it germinate. And yeah.
Because wouldn't that be cool if our city could do just interesting, different things?
Yeah.
And I think Nest is such a cool example of that. And, what else could pop up around it?
Yeah.
Also for placemaking and identity, that leaning into environmental stuff, leaning into sustainability, the recycled nature of, buildings, and I don't know, just a different lens through looking at development.
Yeah. We could turn the whole empty space next to Edison Junior High, that where Walmart was going to go several years ago. We could just turn that into a giant farming, gardening situation.
Yeah. And it would go really well there that I've thought about, we took a trip to Hawaii,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the coolest things we did while we were there was we went to this field, and it was like concrete in the middle and a bunch of picnic tables, and then all these really cool food trucks.
Yeah.
And there were some porta potties, but it was packed, and the food was delicious, and
Mm-hmm.
you could get all sorts of different things. And so if you had that space for this garden, but then maybe have a little, entertainment space,
Mm-hmm.
and then like a food truck thing where budding restaurateurs could come, and it could be kind of interchangeable, and maybe you put some tents up so in the winter people can still
Mm-hmm.
enjoy that indoor-outdoor.
And you've got some walking paths.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We can vision it.
I can see it right now.
Yeah. So, but just these ideas and those things that make a community unique and special, so that people are like, you know what? I think I want to live in Rock Island. That sounds,
Yeah. Or they take what they saw when they were vacationing in Rock Island, and they go, because people vacation in Rock Island all the time.
Yeah.
And then they take it back to their own community. They're like, I learned about this in Rock Island, Illinois. And then people are like, Rock Island, Illinois, where's that? And then they start Googling it, and it's a whole thing.
Well, they also have one of the largest 3D printers on the arsenal, I guess.
I did hear that. Yeah.
And, people are like 3D printing houses out of like earth material.
Weird.
Where you can build a house out of the earth with a 3D printer. I mean, who knows how we do all these things, but I'm also like, how do we use our garbage to like recycle it and build our roads with the more, in some countries like in India, they're somehow using their garbage to make these really durable roads that require less repaving. All this stuff takes money, but
we're spending, that's the thing, is that we're spending money.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're spending money on things that don't work, so why don't we mix it up?
Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm. So, I look forward to mixing it up with you, Laura.
Well, I look forward to it as well. Thanks so much,
I'm also
Annika.
like, why don't we know each other better?
I
don't
know.
I've been in a hole with my children and job, and
we know each other tangentially. Like,
yes.
we're parallel.
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
Well, I can't thank you enough for being here. And is there anything else you want to share, or?
No, this has been great. Thanks for letting me sit down with you and just hang out.
Oh, and what is the website, and like how do people come to the physical address to enjoy lunch or dinner?
Great. So the website is nestcafeqc.org. And then we're just down the street here. We're at 1524 4th Avenue in Rock Island. We're open Tuesday through Saturday, 11 to 2 for lunch, and then also on Thursday nights for dinner. And our menu changes every single day. So we're on Facebook and Instagram. We post our menu, but we also post it every Sunday night and Monday morning on our website.
So, like, what are you serving today?
Golly, I knew you were going to ask me that, and I forgot to look it up.
I saw it on the internet. I think it might be like a Mexican kind of dish, like a bean and I can't remember. That's okay.
Yeah, okay. Yesterday was enchiladas.
Oh, maybe I saw yesterday's menu.
I knew you were going to ask me that. I completely forgot to look. And people think it's so funny that I don't know, but it changes every single day.
It does change every day.
I know tomorrow is a cherry kofta, which is like a kind of like a Mediterranean dish. And then, I'm going to get it all wrong. I don't remember. Yeah. But every Saturday is Build Your Own Burrito Day.
Ooh.
Yeah, every Saturday. Build your own burritos, and then you can have either a sweet side or a savory side.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And it is really good food. I mean, it's
really
just it's better than most of the food you can get at most restaurants in the Quad Cities. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Laura.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good. All right.
Maybe 5 years from now, we'll be eating at the food truck / community garden on 11th Street.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
Somebody will be like, who came up with this idea? Yeah. All right.
Exactly.
Thanks, Annika.
Thank you. Okay. We did it.
Woohoo. Sorry, I rambled a lot.
Oh my gosh, me too. That's my middle name is Rambles, but that's fine.
Did you stop sweating? I
did,
can't tell.
But,
okay.
Like, my hair's literally wet. Like, I was so sweaty when we got started. So.
Well, you can't tell.
Sorry
I was just
for
thinking,
that.
like, you look so much like your dad.
I do, don't I? Yeah, I totally do.
Yeah, you really do.
And my daughter looks just like me. We're